It's time for another listicle, this time about terrible Marvel games. I had a fun time in quotes writing this article because there's a lot of really weird games on here that I like despite them being bad, which I will get to. But first, let's start with something that I just generally do not actually like, which is Marvel's The Avengers Battle for Earth. And this is basically like a turn-based fighting game on the Wii U, where you're dodging things in this arena. It's 3D, but you're going from like right to left to dodge, and you only have a set number of moves mapped to like the buttons. And it would be cool for like a turn-based time system, kind of like Mario RPG, but it's not that. The character list is kind of actually pretty cool for a Marvel fighting game on the Wii U, but yeah, it's just not a great fighting game, an interesting mechanic for, like I said, an RPG, but not for fighting. Next we have LEGO Marvel Avengers, and I know what you're saying. Isn't this supposed to be a good game? Aren't the LEGO games beloved? And yes, they are, but for me, they are not. They are essentially just puzzle platformers. It's cool that they are very accessible to all ages because you can't really die. But that said, some of these puzzles are so basic yet obscure that I can't see young children doing these by themselves. Not to say that I think that they're incapable, but it's just not fun. A Marvel's game, I want it to be just brawling and bashing, maybe with some light puzzles, but this is just mostly puzzles with some spawn point brawling going on in the background. It's just not fun. I just do not like these LEGO games, and I just threw this one on there because it was the latest in the Marvel pantheon of LEGO games. Okay, next we have Spider-Man for the Super Nintendo, and as you'll see for a lot of these, they just take the name of the character and repurpose it for so many titles, but they're different games. This one is so hilarious because Spider-Man looks like this midget dude who is just stocked with muscles. He walks around like a stick up his butt, and it's another game where it's almost more puzzly because you're just trying to figure out what to do in like these bigger environments, and it's just boring. There's not a lot of action going on, especially in this first level, and it's really hard to kind of hit enemies because just the mapping for all the directions is just terrible. But it is hilarious that he is just this buff tiny dude, and yeah, I'm kind of curious if that's actually not Spider-Man, but let's just kill him off and move on to the next one, which is Spider-Man versus the Kingpin on the Sega Genesis. And this one is hilarious because, first of all, if you look at the sprite, it looks like someone colored him in. Some of the red is kind of falling off of his suit, essentially. Plus, I mean, you can punch a cop, and then he crosses his arms like, oh, that's not good. And then you can go and watch a burglary take place, and he crosses his arm there, and it's like, oh, that's not good. Someone's trying to stab him from above, and he's just like, nope, that's not good. It's just hilarious to make him go in all these positions for him crossing his arms like, I do not want to be in this video game right now. Who the hell colored my sprites? Yeah, it's just, not. It's hilarious, but it's not good. Those are hilarious, but Spider-Man Return of the Sinister 6 on the NES is even more hilarious. Okay, he also looks kind of like a stocky kind of dude where he's more torso than legs, which is funny. And the other thing is, he kicks people and they explode in chunks of pixels as if he's like obliterating them, Fist of the North Star style. It is insane. Really hard to control, just kind of wonky all over the place. But I also want to show you the Sega Master System version, because while it does look a little bit better, you can see what's kind of going on. He punches them or kicks them to death, and they explode! They explode! What? This game is amazing. 10 out of 10 for being one of the worst games of all time. But yeah, it's hilarious. Also on the NES is Marvel's X-Men, or the Uncanny X-Men. And this is actually pretty cool because you can choose a variety of different characters, and the sub-character you choose, you can switch between on the go, and otherwise he, you know, controls like an AI person, which the AI is not good. You know what else is not good? Is the controls and the look of the game. Everyone is weird, stocky characters in this top-down world. All you're fighting is like a bunch of machines in this weird, like, Tetris-y kind of blocky world. Super, super ugly. Most characters control the same, but some people have, like, laser blasts, like Cyclops, and the Storm has her lightning thing going on, but again, they barely look like that's what's happening. The lightning blasts look like just pixels coming out. I mean, it's hard to differentiate on the, you know, Nintendo, but still, come on. It's not a good game. Let's advance a couple years for The Incredible Hulk on the Game Boy Advance, which I believe is based off of the Ang Lee film. It's also top-down, and it's just, I don't know if it's not necessarily good. It's just kind of boring. You're going around just punching soldiers to death, and they kind of fly across the room. That's cool, and you can break down doors, you can go in them, which is also kind of cool, but I didn't really feel much interaction with the game. It was just, I don't know, ho-hum, I guess is the best way to describe it. Not the worst, but it's bad. There's also The Incredible Hulk on the Super Nintendo, which is just kind of boring in that soldiers take a lot of beating, which is kind of odd. You move around like a giant tank, which I guess, you know, he is the Hulk, so that makes sense. He's also kind of stocky-ish, which is kind of funny. One thing that's actually interesting is when he gets shot, there's the purple meter or pink meter on top, and he transforms back into Bruce Banner. And they can go into small crevices, you can get like guns to ward off enemies, and once you take damage, if you get your health bar into the green, you will randomly change back into the Hulk. So that's kind of a cool mechanic, I guess, but in an otherwise very boring, just kind of mediocre beat-em-up action adventure game. Man and X-O Manowar in Heavy Metal. This is for the Game Gear. Very few Iron Man games exist, and this is probably one of the first as far as I could find. You know, I can make fun of the pixels all day, but it is for the Game Boy Advance, not the Game Boy Advance, the Game Gear, so that's whatever. But it's just, they both kind of play the same. You can fly, which is, I guess, kind of cool, but it's just fighting mutant people and spiders, and it's just not a lot going on. Again, not the worst thing available, but it's not fun either. Fantastic Four is based off of the first film that came out, which is also not good, but I probably saw a lot more times than really I needed to. Long story, it was a high school thing, but probably 4 times in the theater. So I know that movie rather well, or I should say I used to. But this is also top-down. There are puzzles implemented in here where you can choose between different Fantastic Four members, which you get randomly as you progress through the game. Some parts have 2 people joined up, others have other people joined up, and you're really not having all of them at once to switch between, which is fine, I understand. But again, it's just kind of a brawler with puzzle elements that's just kind of takes down the action, and everything looks super, super blurry too, which the Game Boy Advance is capable of some really, really pretty art, and this is an example of one of those games that is not pretty. Oh my god, Silver Surfer. So frustrating. First of all, the music is awesome. You can choose levels like Mega Man, which is always a kind of a cool thing to do, because, you know, sometimes you can't get the level, so you want to try and go through other ones to see if you can make it through. Not that you're really getting the powers like Mega Man to help yourself get through them, but anyway, I digress. So this is a top-down shooter, and this is also a side-scrolling shooter. And again, the music is awesome, but you die so fast. Between all 5 of the levels that you can select, I don't think I made them that far into them, maybe 10-15 seconds at the most. There are so many things coming at you, and it's not that if the Silver Surfer gets hit on the head or his body, you go down. No, if you, like, your board gets hit, you go down too, and some of the top-down places, it's just almost impossible to avoid enemies at the same time as avoiding, like, obstacles on the walls. It is probably the actual worst game on this list. It is just purely awful and hard for the gosh darn sake of being hard. The Punisher. This is, I guess, kind of a third-person shooter. You have the Punisher on the bottom of the screen, and you're kind of moving him and dodging him as people are shooting past you. So it's almost like a light game, but not quite exactly. It looks okay, at least the Punisher does, but all the people are really gangly and just kind of a mess of pixels. The environments, I guess, aren't that bad either, and you do have like a lot of power-ups and weapons that you have, but it's just kind of, to, you know, keep on saying this word over and over again, but, you know, ho-hum, and just not exciting, not great to play. Speaking of the Punisher, let's get into Daredevil with his own adventure, which actually looks like really good pixel art for the Game Boy Advance. And this is based off of the Ben Affleck movie. And it has some cool things going for it. You have your stick you can use, you can have your sense powers, and you can punch people, but your range is not as good as some of the characters, especially when the characters have like weapons. A fairly good looking Game Boy Advance game, but just also whatever, I guess, is the best way to describe it. You know, whatever. There are some truly fantastic Marvel fighting games out there. I mentioned the first one is not good, but this one is really bad. And those Marvel games that are out, which is, you know, the versus games, essentially, Marvel vs. Capcom and that sort of thing, they have excellent sprites. This one decided to go for polygonal models, which, you know, at the time it probably looked impressive, but man, they look ugly here. Plus, like, the Avengers aren't really part of it. You think a game called Avengers and Galactic Storm, there'd be a lot more Avengers, and mostly it's Captain America, and then you can have his buddies essentially be supporting characters, and everyone else is just people I have no idea about, but they all have supporting characters as well, which is, you know, makes the list a little bit bigger. Yeah, just blurry environments, blurry characters, just ugly all around, and very clunking fighting controls. It's just very a basic, just punchy, low-level strategy fighting game. I've saved the easiest to make fun of for last, which is, of course, Spider-Man for the Atari 2600. Essentially, you are Spider-Man going up the scaling of a building, and you're rescuing people. Your spider web is black for some reason. You have to connect to the yellow parts of the building, otherwise you will go down if you hit a window. And you're trying to rescue these people to get points. But the funniest thing I thought about this game, which, you know, it's a fairly basic game, so that's fine for an Atari game. It's, you know, again, fine. When you fall, the crunch he makes when he dies, which will be the closing noise you get for the end of this video, is just hilarious. And that's why I kind of put it on here. Plus, you know, it's, again, very easy to make fun of an Atari game. So, yeah. But that is my Marvel list. Again, you can read my Listicle article describing some of these games in more depth if you want to see that. And otherwise, I will see you next time. Did you know that was a ReActionExaminer video? If you liked it, you should subscribe to me to keep up with everything that I'm doing. Also, if you have some other interests, like sex for example, check out Tomops, which is a comedy sex podcast thing wherein my best friend and I check out the weird and abnormal and the erotic. And of course, you should support me on Patreon because, hey, I want to make the channel better and I want your help to do so. Plus, if you want to check out my writing, check out Game Jerk, where I have archives and new stuff for all projects, okay? You can find all the stuff and more in the description with the links below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.